Okay, well, if I can just start off then with a different set of questions. I've got some questions about the NBN, less technical questions for the entity itself, but more about the announcement and some of the budget decisions. So if I can kick off with those. In 2000, just wait till the correct people come to the table.
We're one seat too short on this table, Senator.
Sure, we can make it work.
We are. We might just have to interchange a little bit.
In 2003, the Coalition promised to deliver the NBN for $29.5 billion. That cost then blew out to $41 billion, and then the cost blew out to $49 billion. Then it blew out again to $51 billion. Can the department confirm that NBN peak funding is now forecast to reach $57 billion?
Mr Madsen might kick off on that one.
Andrew Madsen, Assistant Secretary, the NBN Network. So according to NBN's 2021 corporate plan, they're stating that the cost for the NBN to have completed the volume build and deliver on their previous corporate plan was $51 billion.
And there's a forecast now for that to for peak funding to reach $57 billion, as I understand it.
In the current corporate plan, the company has outlined new investments that they have made that will generate a positive return for the business and lift its rate of return from 3.2% to 3.7%. So those investments will require a capital outlay over the coming years out to 2023, and then they will return have a positive rate of return for the business in the following period.
Sorry, I think trying to be a little bit clever with that answer there, I'm actually just interested in what that rollout cost will be, putting aside what predictions there might be or forecasts about, returns. I'm actually just asking about the funding itself. Yep. So will that reach $57 billion?
Senator, I think there's a couple of different concepts caught up here, but I'll pass back to Mr Madsen in a second, is that the peak funding related to the initial rollout, which is almost complete now, and that was the figure Mr Madsen quoted of the 49, which related to the initial rollout of the NBN. In terms of investment decisions post-initial rollout of the NBN, they're a different consideration, and these investments are being funded from public debt markets.
So if we add those two figures together, is it $57 billion? Is that what?
Are you asking whether 49 plus 8 is 57?
No. In the corporate plan that has just been read out to me, $51 billion is the peak funding for the NBN. Now I'm trying to find out whether peak funding that the entity would need until it does have that cash flow that you're talking about in the future will reach a higher amount than $51 billion. The numbers that I have in front of me is that it will reach $57 billion.
Yeah, I think I'll pass to Mr Windia, but I think we've got two different concepts. One is about peak funding with respect to the initial rollout of the NBN, and one is about arrangements post-initial rollout of the NBN. But Mr Windia, do you have anything to add in that?
No, I mean that's what the Secretary has said is correct. The peak funding figure that we have talked about relates to completion of the volume build. That has been a long-standing sort of project phase for the NBN, and those are the numbers that were referred to earlier. And then subsequently there have been additional decisions around additional new investments that weren't part of the original volume build, and obviously they require some capital. So your question about what's the level of funding that NBN will need to complete the volume build and to fulfil additional positive return investments in the period through to it being cash flow positive. I'll see whether Mr Madsen has an answer to that specifically to that question, but I guess what we were trying to differentiate is the peak funding number in relation to the project and volume build of rolling out to all premises across Australia.
Can I just stop you there, Mr Winderman? Can I be really clear? Because, it is harder when you're not in the room, and I just want to make sure that you are not misunderstanding my question and I'm using the right terminology. What is the amount of peak funding that NBN will need post the initial rollout? What will peak equity and debt reach? Is it $57 billion altogether?
Sorry, Senator. No, I do understand that question. I'll see if Mr Madsen can confirm whether that is the right number or not. He is nodding at me. So yes, I think that's correct, Senator. If you take into account all of the announced investments of NBN and the funding, $57 million. Yes, $1 billion. Sorry.
Okay.
Senator Green,
I think we're all asking in the first place.
Senator Green, just to clarify that peak funding from the government is capped at $49 billion. So that's the $29.5 billion in equity that you pointed out earlier on, plus $19.6 billion in debt, which take the form of a Commonwealth loan on commercial terms. And that Commonwealth loan is due to be paid back by NBN by the 30th of June 2024.
Okay, $57 million altogether. Why does the cost of the NBN multi-technology mix keep increasing? It's from 2013, it's gone from 29.5, and we've just been told that it will reach $57 billion.
Senator, this is why I was talking about there are two concepts here. The first figure on peak funding was to deliver the volume rollout, which is what you're referring to in terms of the multi-technology mix, and the further funding beyond that is for the nature of ongoing capital investment that NBN will take to improve networks beyond the volume rollout. Sorry, that's just in the recent discussion, so that's not a price increase in delivering the volume rollout.
Why does it keep getting more expensive? Why does the number keep going up, Mr Atkinson? It's a pretty simple question.
Well, so NBN has, as the Secretary has mentioned, has completed the initial rollout, the high volume rollout of the network, and it's now moved into its operating phase where it is now continuing to connect new premises to the network, as it would be expected to do. And it's also made the decision, in conjunction with the government, to invest in additional network investments that will provide extra capacity for business and residential premises, as well as other enhancements across the company, which, as I mentioned earlier, are expected to generate a positive return and as well as enhancing outcomes for consumers and increasing GDP and jobs across the economy.
And in terms of the pricing...
Okay, that's what the press release says. Can I just go to another set of figures? In 2013, the Coalition promised that their version of NBN, I would say an inferior version of NBN, would deliver average wholesale prices of $38 per month by 2021. So that's next year. Can you confirm the average wholesale residential prices are now heading towards $49 per month?
Senator, I think if we were to look at NBN's prices, NBN's prices are closely regulated by the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission. And the primary instrument for doing that is a special access undertaking that the company and the Commission entered into in 2014, and those prices remain the same as they were at that date. and NBN has not increased its wholesale prices since that point in time.
Is it so? There was promised that it would be $38 per month by 2021. Can you confirm that the average wholesale residential prices are now heading towards $49 per month? That's my question. The other information you gave me is well and good, but I'm asking you to answer that question.
Well, Senator, I think the only answer we can, I mean, I don't have a figure for what the average is in front of me. I think, but what I would say is that without knowing exactly what was used to calculate the average back in 2013, it's a bit hard to know whether we're comparing apples with apples or apples with oranges. To the point, though,
I'm
that
not asking you, sorry, Mr. Winterman, I'm not asking you to make that comparison. People can do that for themselves. I'm asking you to confirm whether this is the rate per month.
I suppose the point I was then going to make, Senator, is the prices NBN charges are a combination of factors. There's a sort of fixed charge, and then there is a component which relates to usage. And so that the overall pricing structure of NBN is ends up being determined by the nature of the service someone buys, which has changed over time as people have bought faster or higher speed tiers, and the amount of data they end up consuming, and that changes as well. And in fact, over recent months, as a consequence of COVID, people have consumed data at a much faster rate than anyone, I think, would have anticipated. So that will affect what they were paying. What Mr. Madsen referred to is the prices as regulated for the NBN have not gone up at all. In fact, the prices, the wholesale prices that NBN is offering for a range of their products are considerably below the wholesale regulated prices that were set back in 2014.
Okay. So are you saying that you're unable to confirm what the prices are forecasting, where they're heading towards? We don't know yet, or you don't know?
So I suppose there are two concepts. I think there's a difference between what the wholesale prices might be, and as I said, there's a fixed component and a usage component, and therefore a distinction between that and what might be the average revenue per user received by NBN. And the average revenue per user may well be affected by the amount of data that the consumers end up using.
Okay. I might have to come back to that with NBN is at the table. I've just got a quote here from 16th of August 2018. So again, just going back and understanding what was promised and now what we've actually been given. The quote's from Bill Morrow. He was then the CEO of the NBN Co. And if you'll just bear with me, there's a bit of information here that's quite important. Bill Morrow said in 2018, "I'm delighted to say that we are close to ending the testing phase and will shortly install our G.fast enabled DPU on this FTTC network. We will be one of the first operators in the world to take this step on FTTC. What we are doing here is preloading the NBN network to be able to meet the bandwidth demands of the future G.fast technology. It will enable gigabit per second speeds over corporate lines, with the vast majority of 1.5 million premises on the FTTC network to be G.fast enabled by the year 2020. So just to repeat that, with the vast majority of 1.5 million premises on the FTTC network to be G.fast enabled by the year 2020. So that was in 2018, but on the 23rd of September 2020 at the National Press Club, Minister Fletcher announced just recently that NBN will commit $100 million to speed uplift program for the 1.5 million homes served by the fibre to the curb. This will give them access to gigabit speeds through enablement of G.fast capability by 2023. Given Bill Morrow said that gigabit capacity would be ready on fibre to the curb by 2020, why has the Minister announced that it will now be enabled by 2023?
So, Senator, I think there's an element of this which is probably worth putting to NBN themselves, just to understand precisely the details and volumes of customers connected to which technology. The distinction between, I think the explanation for the two positions that you've outlined is back in 2018, what Mr. Morrow was talking about, I think you will discover, it relates to ensuring that the equipment that was installed in the network was capable of supporting faster speeds into the future. What we are talking about in this latest announcement is indicating that the company is ready to invest or spend on demand when someone orders gigabit type level services, and there is some work that needs to be done to make sure that when a customer actually orders a gigabit service, that service is made available.
So,
do you have a line of questioning you'd like to finish, or are you happy to pass the call and come back?
I've got a few questions I'd like to finish. What is the difference between what Mr. Morrow said in 2018 and what Minister Fletcher said at the press club? Both of them referred to 1.5 million premises being enabled, G.fast enabled. One of them said it would be by 2020, and the minister is now saying it's 2023. Why won't fibre to the curb network be gigabyte capable by the end of 2020?
I think as I said, I think there are some details here that would be worth raising with NBN, or we can take them on notice. But I think NBN will be able to answer them for you when they appear on exactly what the state of the FTTC network is and its readiness. So I think the best place to find out the answer to understand the explanation of those two positions is to actually check with NBN.
So you don't know the answer, Mr. Winderman?
I don't. I mean,
sorry.
I don't want to. As I say, there is. I mean, I think there is. There may well be issues here associated with the difference between actually connecting and providing a customer with a gigabit speed when they're ordered, when they order such a service, versus having the network investing in technology in the network that is capable of supplying those services at some point in the future. But as I say, I think it would be better to put those questions on the specifics of the FTTC network to NBN.
All right, well, this is a pretty high-level question, so maybe we can end on this if I can get to the bottom of this one. Did the minister announce an upgrade or a delay?
You're talking about the announcement in September, Senator?
In regards to having 1.5 million homes enabled by G.fast capability.
The announcement in September was an announcement about a significant upgrade of NBN to be able to support gigabit services.
Was it an upgrade or was it a delay of the previous position by Mr. Bill Morrow?
Senator, as I've said, on the specifics of the FTTC, I'm happy to take it on notice, but I suspect a quicker way of understanding those two positions is probably to ask those questions directly of NBN, who, as you know, will be appearing. But in the broad point is that what was announced by the minister in September was a significant upgrade of NBN to be able to support gigabit services for consumers that demanded them across a range of network types.
Is that two different things, though? I'm asking you if it was an upgrade of this particular capability or a delay of this particular capability. Because I know that there's some talk about some other types of upgrading the technology, but just in regards to this one capability, because we were told that it was going to be finished in 2020.
So the FTTN network has been completed and it is providing services to those 1.5 million premises. Your question might go more to the maximum speed that those services can obtain. And it may be that Mr. Morrow's original statement referred to the ability of that network to be upgraded over time to achieve those gigabit capabilities. But as Mr. Windia has indicated, it might be better to put that level of detail to the company.
Mr. Morrow's statement, I think, as you pointed out, was end of a testing phase of a particular piece of technology, which then, they, subject to the outcomes of those tests, they would have been looking to deploy in the network. But I think that's where the questions to NBN will be able to explain what they did in terms of installation of G.fast capable DPUs in 2018 and since then, and what is also required and was always, I imagine, envisaged to be required to actually then connect customers who order a gigabit service through their RSP to the network. So Mr. Morrow was talking about the DPUs that were then going to come into the market and be installed in the network at that point in time.
Okay, but the upgrade that you spoke about just recently, what is the NBN actually upgrading on the FTTC network? Because you just said that it was significant. They're spending about $70 per home, as I can understand. So what is that upgrade for?
Senator, as I've said, I think I'm happy to take that on notice. I can't give you the technical answer to that question right now, but I think it would be something that NBN will be very happy to explain to you.
That's a pretty high-level question. Are you sure you don't have the answer? You don't know the answer to that?
Well, I think you're trying to get an answer to exactly what the dollars will be spent on in the network by the company, and that is something that they have the detail of, and I don't have the detail of, Senator.
You don't have the details of $70 per home is going to buy the government?
Senator, I don't have the details of exactly what the technical issues that NBN is going to be spending money on over the next few years are with respect to the FTTC network. I'm happy to take it on notice, but as I say, I think it would be. I think NBN will be happy to answer those questions.
I think I have to hand over just to wrap up, so I can do that. You just said that it was significant upgrade. It's so significant that you don't know what it is?
Senator, Can I just assist with this? I think Mr. Windy is saying that you will get a better answer from the people who are actually going to be implementing the upgrade on the technical aspects of exactly what's going to happen to the FTTC.
Chair, I do think
but
this
Mr.
has been
Atkins,
answered a few times.
Mr. Atkins, I can thank you for that advice about who I might be able to get a better answer from, but I would like an answer from the people sitting at the table right now.
Well, Senator Green, I do believe that that all members at the table have said that that question will be taken on notice, or you can direct it to NBN, which is probably the more appropriate agency.
And in taking it on notice, that means at the moment you don't have that information at hand. Is that correct?
That's normally what taking on notice means.
That's correct, Senator.
Okay, so it's so significant we don't have that information on hand. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'll take that as a comment. Senator Hanson-Young, you have the call.